Welcome to Living Legacy Leadership, where we explore, discover, and share insights, tools, and strategies for a life well lived into elderhood. I'm your host, Donna Kim Brand, author, speaker, legacy strategy coach, and creator of the concept Living Legacy, where you choose to live life on your own terms while contributing to people, places, and projects along your life journey. I believe that the life you live is the legacy you leave. Now, the guests I bring to you each week all address some unique aspect of learning, leadership, or legacy. This helps you raise your own game as a leader in business and life, and also showcases some extraordinary people who exemplify living legacy leadership. At least once a month, I also offer a training session to skill you in game changer thinking for your own application. So get your notebook ready or sharpen up your memory by tuning in your attention, and we'll dive right in. Well, you are in for a surprise today. I'm bringing you a spitfire of a woman. Her name is Erin Boyd. Now, from launching the first women's powerlifting team in her high school to co-creating a minor in social innovation at Stanford University, Erin has been an innovator for building inclusive and empowered communities. Erin was the co-founder of Ashoka U, which has helped to establish more social entrepreneurship programs and initiatives at over 400 colleges and universities globally. She's also a founding board member of both the Watson Institute and the Amani Institutes, which both have multiple locations domestically and internationally, to equip young global leaders with the tools, network, and mindset to solve the toughest challenges facing the world. Now, today, Erin's a community manager at Culdesac, a Silcon Valley startup that's building the first car-free neighborhood built from scratch in the U.S. Erin is a professionally trained farm-to-table chef, woohoo, and she's currently excited about launching the Cycling Without Age chapter in Tempe, Arizona. So welcome, Erin Boyd.
Thank you so much, Donna. It's really such a pleasure. I loved hearing your intro because the idea that your life is your legacy is such a beautiful concept, and it's already changed the way I think about my life just hearing the intro. So what a special opportunity to be on this radio interview with you.
Well, thank you. And, you exemplify exactly what a living legacy is, because you were quick out of the start gates, sort of like a bull stomping on that Texas ground in rural Texas there. And it seems like from our chats and from knowing you across the years in a variety of capacities, you've always had kind of larger than life dreams that had you bust out of your original small town upbringing. And tell us how you sort of left that small town, even though I suspect, as most Texans are, it never really leaves you to be a Texan.
Once a Texan, always a Texan. So right. Yeah, I love when people ask me where I'm from. I say, I grew up in Pleasanton, Texas, which is the home of live oak, which is a special type of oak tree, which is very, very beautiful, very deep roots, very beautiful branches. So it's a home of live oak and friendly folk. And we're also, and so, and then I have a big smile because that's definitely influenced me. That was a motto of our town. And it's only 7,000 people where I grew up. And so it was a small rural town about 45 minutes south of San Antonio. And, everyone there, everyone knew each other. If you went to the grocery store, you had to plan an extra hour just because, that you would be talking to your neighbor. And that friendly attitude is something that's really stuck with me. It's something that I love learning about people. I love learning about their background, where they're from, because I think it really influences who you are. And so that, and getting so much support. I mean, whether it's a local chamber of commerce, whether it was the local Lions Club. I was part of the 4-H club growing up. So I had my favorite thing. I had this little belt buckle that said Erin on it, and my little cowgirl boots, and part of the 4-H club, anything from having, instructors who taught me, basic cooking skills, which, comes back much later in life, to then raising animals, raising livestock, and learning actually the importance of, livestock and the role that plays in a rural community. So I actually raised bunnies that I took to the stock show and rodeo growing up. So it was a really lovely upbringing in such a, small town with so many really positive influences, both through kind of clubs and community groups, as well as, in the school. It was a small public school system. And so basically, all of the teachers were just really committed to the students and our learning with the resources that we had, even though it wasn't, it wasn't a top tier charter school or anything like that. And so actually, I think your question, Donna, was like, what were some of my big dreams? So growing up in this small town, it wasn't really common for a lot of the kids I went to school with to go to college. And for those who did, it was to some of the local community colleges or, public state colleges. But for whatever reason, I just, I think I had these amazing teachers who really influenced me and who just encouraged me to dream big. I loved reading. I loved writing. I participated in almost every play that we had available at our schools. I got really into kind of drama and theater. I was part of the debate club in my high school. And so all of these extracurricular activities that were more on the academic side, really my instructors encouraged me to consider, what if you thought about going to a college? And so I would study from page to front to cover to back to cover, the U.S. News and World Report, trying to learn about different colleges and universities. So that was my approach. But I thought, well, maybe I could learn about these colleges and universities these teachers are talking about to see if any of them struck a fancy with me.
So did you have any sort of, what do you want to be when you grow up kind of visions for yourself at that point? Because you'd done such an eclectic engagement in clubs, and you were excelled in academics, and obviously the 4-H activities, which was much more three-dimensional. What did you want to be when you grew up?
So, and then, and I didn't even add in here, of course, sports was a huge part of my upbringing. I mean, Texas sports are king. And so started playing softball from kindergarten, ended up, eventually pitching for our high school team and almost thinking about going to college playing sports. Later on, I'll share more about this, but I played, cheerleading and did gymnastics and even, volleyball, and eventually I'll share more, but I started our women's powerlifting team in my high school, and that's a competitive weightlifting club. And so between all of these kind of sports and academics and athletics, when I thought about what I wanted to be when I grew up, I was just curious about everything. So anything from when I was in 4-H, I was like, I want to be a veterinarian, to eventually when I got old enough to realize that everything interested me. The funny thing, Donna, what I remember thinking to myself is I want to learn so much about, as much as I can, that I want people to ask me for advice. That was my plan for my career. So I had no specific profession in mind, which really panned out because I think I've ended up, really bouncing around and doing many things. Who knows? I haven't got to the place yet where people want to ask for my advice, but maybe that will happen in my older years.
I don't know. You have made an impact on, if not, I don't know, millions, might be stretching it at this point, although with the ripple effect, I'm sure that's the case, but definitely thousands, and literally around the world that you have impacted with your wisdom, with your knowledge, with your guidance, and so on. So, I wouldn't write yourself off on that too soon. So you started looking to escape high school even early, maybe even start college early, but made a different choice that sent you off to the West Coast and Stanford. So what did that chapter open up for you?
Yeah, so, I feel really fortunate that I ended up attending a summer camp at Stanford University, and I just fell in love with the campus. I loved the beautiful, who wouldn't, the palm trees. I love that sports was a big part of the environment, since sports was something that, I'd really fallen into in my high school. And then just academically, it just felt like, obviously that was extremely strong, but there was some chemistry in the air. It almost felt magical, that I could feel the creativity. I could feel people building new ideas, building new businesses. I just felt that in the air. And that I remember coming home from that summer camp and I said, Mom, I'm going to Stanford University. That was, I'm sure so many kids have said that, and I can't believe I was just lucky enough to actually get to attend. And so whenever I went to Stanford University, I was just a kid in a candy store, and it opened up so many things for me. I ended up actually walking on to the Stanford crew team. And so nobody told me that someone who's 5'2" shouldn't be a rower. You're typically 6'2" when you're a rower. People thought I was a coxswain. But I ended up on the varsity crew team at Stanford, and some of my lifelong friends are from that. And I say, just sports and teamwork and just the discipline of waking up at, 4:35 a.m. while also doing classes, kept a routine that helped me to get into the groove of college, because academically it was very challenging for me. So I think I sought out both inspiring people and inspiring ideas, which eventually led me actually to study languages, which I loved. So I studied Spanish and Portuguese and studied abroad in Santiago, Chile. And when I was there, I just was my eyes were open to the world. Here I am, a girl from a small town in Texas, and just being in Latin America, I thought, wow, I really want to go back to Latin America. I wanted to make a difference in the world. And I talked to a college counselor, and this college counselor said to me, well, Erin, have you ever considered business school? And I thought that was a crazy suggestion because, I just told her I wanted to make a huge difference in the world, probably work at like a nonprofit. And so I hadn't even ever considered business school. And she said, there's something called nonprofit management, and there's something called social entrepreneurship, which is about building new ideas, building movements, building nonprofits, but that have a global scale, that have a huge impact in mind. And that's called social entrepreneurship. And I thought, well, that sounds exactly what I want. It has that creative energy. It has this, idea of giving back and really making a difference in your community, and in a way that has this kind of professional business aspect that I felt like really resonated with some of my small town values, actually, but with a big vision. And so I ended up getting connected with the leader of the Social Entrepreneurship Club, and we teamed up. And before we knew it, I was working hand in hand, and we were co-founders of the minor in social innovation at Stanford. We stitched together a number of different courses so that other students who wanted to, say, be involved in improving the education system, be involved in improving income equality in the local area, if they wanted to be involved in environmental policy, and actually think about starting new initiatives, what classes could they take at Stanford University that had a multidisciplinary perspective that brought either the history, context, as well as kind of the business acumen and strategy to think about, okay, how do we define what the problem is in the education system? Who are the players? And what would be the new idea that might actually make a difference? Is it an education program? Is it a partnership with a local university? Or maybe it's a whole new teacher curriculum, because the problem is actually that the teachers aren't getting supported to help these low-income kids. And so the most important thing was that we wanted to build that mindset and skill set in ourselves as budding social innovators, as well as build the infrastructure at the university so that other students could be introduced to that type of thinking and these types of problems, that they too could have a career path involved in making a difference.
You talk, sort of rolls off your tongue about co-creating the minor in social entrepreneurship at Stanford. But I mean, that is a huge achievement. And I mean, did you understand the impact you were already making at that point at the time, or did it only sort of hit you later?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I mean, at the time, we were so young and so bold that it was the only obvious thing to do, that this was something that we wanted to study. And I have to let the listeners know that my co-partner in crime was actually none other than the host of the show, Donna Kim's daughter, Marina Kim. And Marina and I were just amazing, best friends to this day. But it started there, that we knew what we wanted to accomplish, and we just figured, put one foot in front of the other. We'll talk to the professors who are in charge of the classes. We'll map the classes. We'll find a faculty sponsor. We'll get it approved. And, it wasn't until much later that we really realized how much bureaucracy there is at colleges and universities, and how hard it is actually to change academic curriculum and to get something like this approved. Definitely wasn't until hindsight 2020 in terms of actually how difficult these things are. At the time, I think our youth and our boldness was in our favor to get this passed, and also just our kind of clarity of vision at the time of what we wanted to achieve.
And you sort of segued then after graduation into some international work in the education field. Did you not? Just share with us some of what you did in those programs.
Yeah.